where the skyline disappeared. Built a throne from every doubt, every failure, every fear. Everybody talks about the fire till they standing in the flame. Then they're looking for a hero, funny how they know your name. Pressure only taught me how to sharpen every scar. Every closed door only turned another lock into a start. I don't chase the spotlight, I become the reason that it shines. Turning every second that they doubt it into headlines over time. The silence is breaking, the ground is awakening. If the world keeps waiting, I'll become the spark. If the night gets darker, I'll become the mark. Raise your voice, raise your eyes. Nothing changes till somebody decides. When the silence shatters, everything ignites. I've been carrying mountains underneath a steady smile. Every mile another lesson, every wound another trial. People only see the summit, never see the climb, never count the nights. You almost left your dream behind. So I learned to build a kingdom out of every broken brick. Every setback gave me leverage, every loss became a gift. Hear the thunder getting closer. One heartbeat, one moment. Everything changes now. Everything changes now. Everything changes now. Final double time, double time, double, double, double. Now I'm running through the rubble with a pulse that'll never quit. Every little limitation getting buried underneath the grit. Every single second now is doubted, turned to evidence. Now they're looking at the climb like I'm watching an inheritance. Never gonna slow, never gonna fold, never gonna freeze when the pressure hit. Every opposition turned into another stepping stone, and I'm measuring every risk, building every vision with precision while I'm living on the edge of it. Momentum like an avalanche, impossible to ever get ahead of it. I'm breaking every feeling, rearranging every feeling. Got the whole horizon bending while the lightning starts revealing that the fear was just a shadow, that the shadow never mattered, that the only thing between us and tomorrow was the pattern. Now the orchestra is rising, every drum is synchronizing, every heartbeat multiplying, every echo amplifying, every chapter finally writing everything they thought impossible until it wasn't. When the silence strikes, the moves, when one voice rises, a thousand more choose to guide. We don't follow history, we make it.
So I had some medical issues that had come up, and then so there's some struggles there. So I'm gonna try my best to kind of like bounce back. So I'm a little nervous myself actually doing this, especially talking to a candidate for Congress. But I'm gonna start off with a basic question that was always, it's like a thing when I was in the Army. Is what makes you uncommon?
What makes me uncommon in this field of candidates, a crowded field of candidates? There are 8 running on the Republican side, 4 on the Democratic side. I do think the Democrats are, I wish I could say one of them had a conservative bone, but it does not appear that way. We're getting to mix with them at these forums a little bit more and more. But on the Republican side, what makes me uncommon is, and I digress to say, Abraham Lincoln said in his Gettysburg Address, of the people, by the people, for the people. And in my case, I don't know that there will ever be another candidate that was truly born right here 35 miles away and grew up right here, spent their entire life. I mean, other than going off to college and law school, the bulk of my entire life has been here. In these day and times, that is uncommon. And I've availed myself, put myself out there for people to say, we'll look at you and consider you. And if, we see that you represent the values of North Florida, we're going to vote for you. Yeah. I feel very good. This is a 16-county congressional district. It is tremendous in size. And Bay County is one of the few battleground counties. You have two others that have connections to Bay County, but I question whether they really are from here, other than having kind of connections to their childhood. But I'm from here. Port St. Joe is pretty much a bedroom community to Panama City. We don't have a Sam's Club. We don't have a movie theater. We don't have any of those things. We depend on Panama City for everything. Being a school superintendent for 15 years, Bay County kids, Mexico Beach kids have always come to our school. So there's a big nexus that connects us. So you say what's unusual? Well, I'm from here all my life.
I am. Okay, we'll go ahead and get started. So let's talk about the first 100 days. Let's pretend today you get elected. What's the single most important issue you would focus on in your first 100 days in Congress? And what specific bill or piece of legislation would you introduce or even support right now?
Well, I think facing our country right now, the Save America Act is the single most important piece of legislation facing our country right now. If we do not, and I'm talking about this Congress, if we do not have election integrity, meaning the rest of the country does like Florida, you've got to show an ID and prove who you are just to go vote. The Save America Act that's already passed the U.S. House of Representatives is sitting there in Congress. And, with Mitch McConnell being out and with Lindsey Graham's untimely death, it remains in question. But the single most important thing that we have to see passed is the Save America Act. And that would, ultimately fair elections, meaning if the Democrats did win an election, for presidency or take over the House or the Senate, in the future, we would have safe and fair elections that preserves our democracy.
Well, let's hit on that real quick, because so all of these questions here, they were emailed to me. Mm-hmm. So I have friends that were helping me with podcasts originally, and I've got to know them a little bit better over the past couple of months, and so they were able to send me some questions. One of the questions, going back into the voting thing, was, do you believe that people should have to prove that they are U.S. citizens when they register to vote?
I think that we do that here in Florida already. The little gold star is on your driver's license. Yep. You've taken your birth certificate in. So, yes, I do. I mean, our high school, I've been a school superintendent for 15 years. I know that when kids go get their driver's license, they have the option to register to vote. So, I mean, listen, democracy takes work. This republic form of democracy that we have in this country takes work, and it's going to take. Not everybody goes to vote. What are we going to probably have in this election cycle this time? 25% of the registered voters go vote, maybe 30% on a good day. People have to take part in democracy for it to work. Mm-hmm. And that's what campaigns are all about. As far as registering to vote, I can't tell you that somebody doesn't have to put a little effort into learning, into registering, but nobody that I've ever heard of has ever been shut out. This thing about people being intimidated out doesn't even make sense to me. Mm-hmm. If you're not an American citizen, don't try to go register to vote. If you're not an American citizen or you don't have your constitutional rights, don't try to go vote. But that's not mainstream in everyday America, certainly not here in the 2nd Congressional District.
Yeah, so this one kind of goes hand in hand with that one when we talk about proof of citizenship to vote, because I agree with you. I think it should be done, like, obviously it's done at the DMV when you go get a license or whatnot. You do have to show proof. I'm 100% on board. I don't think you should have the right to vote. unless you're an American citizen. So, but that goes into border security and immigration, and that's one of the things that's on your highlighted point. So for the border and security and immigration, I know I'm running through these really quick, but I know I only got you for 1 hour, so bear with me. So what would you do to improve border security right now as it is, and what changes would you make to legal immigration?
Well, I mean, we watched the 4 years of the Biden presidency where our southern border was open and porous. People by the millions en masse came across. We don't have that today under President Trump. I'd continue to support the Make America Great Again agenda put forward by President Trump. He has locked down our borders. We don't have any illegal crossings, and if we do, it's a rarity. What we're trying to prevent is the bigger picture. It's not saying don't believe in other parts of the world that coming here, but legal immigration has to be the mindset for which people come from. What we've found out is people are coming from a lot of Middle Eastern countries, coming up through South America to the southern border, and have found, that it's easier just to, under the 4 years of the Biden administration, come into this country. Those people have proven they're the dregs from their country, and they're coming here, but they have not assimilated into our society. Look at Minnesota. Look at Minneapolis, Minnesota. They have ruined that otherwise Minneapolis, St. Paul. They've ruined a beautiful, beautiful place. And, the motto of Minnesota, the state, is, home of 10,000 lakes. It's a beautiful state otherwise. But you have allowed such a Muslim population to go in that Sharia law has become, something they want to put forward in their own communities to govern at the expense of what our Constitution, has otherwise granted them. So those people did not assimilate. They're trying to change the society starting right there. And it's a bad seed that's been planted. And I think that's what's happened in so many of our big big cities all over this country.
Getting back to the question, do you believe that there's any changes that need to be made to legal immigration at this point at all? And if there was some things that you could change,
are there common sense answers out there? Let me say this: talking to my friend Greg Abrams that owns a fleet of fishing boats that goes out of here, and everybody that's in the commercial fishing business, you know what? They depend on the H-2B visa program.
I get it. But we got some major questions about that. So.
And then when you go up to Jackson, Holmes, Washington counties, people don't realize Jackson County, Florida, just right up 231 from here, has more row crop farming than any other county in the state of Florida. They do depend on immigrant labor force. Panama City Beach, Condo, so often the maintenance and the cleanings that go on there pay very well, but they're jobs that people that live here don't want to go do, and so often immigrant labor is hired in here through visa programs. And what happens, as Greg Abrams would say, the red tape and the cost just to bring in somebody to work on a fishing boat sometimes outweighs what that boat can produce financially for us to run it. There's got to be common sense answers to everything. Now, you ask a question about immigration coupled with protecting the southern border. I think that I've already said our southern border is locked down. Right now, under President Trump, I don't think there's a big concern. And I think he's doing a good job getting rid of some of the bad elements that have snuck across and trying to hide out and make their whatever existence here and not contribute to society. But as far as immigration goes, I do think that it should be looked at.
Well, I want to jump back into the H-2B because we're kind of skipping all over, but that's fine. H-2B workers. So, question that I have here for that one is many hotels, especially here, Northwest Florida, many hotels, restaurants, and seasonal businesses in Northwest Florida rely on H-2B guest workers because they say they can't find enough local workers based on numbers that we have. So, do you support expanding H-2B visa programs or keep it the same? You want to reduce it? You want to keep it the same? I mean, these are...
Well, maybe in my previous answer, maybe I gave it a elongated answer to say, obviously it has to be looked at.
Yeah.
We have employers, literally. One of my favorite stories is the story about a counterfeit $100 bill. Somebody came up to an old farmer and said, "Give me $20, I'll give you this $100 bill." He said, "Well, it smells fishy," but the farmer did it. He took it. Not telling anybody to deal in counterfeit money, so there's my disclaimer. But he spent it. He bought $100 worth of feed. The guy spent it another 9 times. The 10th guy, 11th guy took it to the bank and deposited it. The banker said, "Oh, this is counterfeit. I'm sorry, you're out $100. The moral of the story is it put $1,000 into that local economy. We're trying to do things that create jobs for us right here in the 2nd Congressional District. Whether that's a good analogy or not, and people say, there you are advocating counterfeit. No, we're trying to prove a point. We have employers here that need help. And the first realm of offering should go to the people that are here, that are legal U.S. citizens. But if they can't fill those jobs, whether they're on fishing boats or the condos or the row crop farmers in Jackson County, Florida, then you know what? We have to go through what the legal system already offers, and that's through the visa programs.
And right now
And there is some reforms that probably need to be done in that.
Yeah, and right now, just for the viewers who are listening, so only 66,000 per year are that's the national standard for those visas. Florida, second largest state at 21,500 openings. So, you know, we're growing massively here in Bay County.
It's a costly process to those that employ.
How would you measure the success of it though if you were to become, you know, our congressman?
How do we measure the success of it? I know that I live in a small town called Port St. Joe, and I know that the Piggly Wiggly can't find enough employees to do all of the jobs, so they go through one of these programs, and it seems like there's a lot of Jamaicans that work there, and they go through a Panama City employment firm. They pay a premium to get employees that will show up at work every day. For Piggly Wiggly in Port St. Joe, and I use that as a case site example, I think they would say they're finding tremendous success. Are others taking that risk? Can they afford to take that risk? I don't know. But what I do know is it is costly, and those employment services are making money. I think that everything needs to be looked at. You're asking me to judge success. I can only tell you they look like they're prospering. So I'm sure other people are too. But there are a lot of people that are not prospering, that are small businesses and need a fair shake. But I want to be clear to say this. I believe that jobs should go to Americans first.
Okay. One more question about immigration, and then we're going to move on. And I think we're going to move on to government surveillance and privacy. But the next one was HR 4393, which is the Dignity Act. Are you familiar with it?
Heard enough about it. Yeah.
Okay, yeah. So the Dignity Act proposes stronger border security, mandatory nationwide e-verify, faster legal immigration processing. A pathway to legal status, pretty much. So for certain undocumented immigrants who pass background checks, pay restitution and fees, and remain in good legal standing. So that's what that bill is about. So you're familiar with the bill. So if that bill came before the House tomorrow and you were there and you had to vote, would you vote yes or no for it?
I don't, in fairness to me, I'm not a member of Congress yet. I want to say this. I believe in a common sense approach. I would have had not even 2 cents to contribute to the consideration of that bill. Now, the spirit of that bill, we talk about the fairness of it. Let's talk about people that enter this country illegally.
Well, let me ask.
I believe that if you enter this country illegally, you broke a law from the inception. So I would be less inclined to support anything that rewards
at least
the
for
first
the bill,
act being breaking of the law.
At least for the bill, for 4393, the Dignity Act. Mm-hmm. So like I said, there are those 3 principles that are there, right? So you have, or it's the provisions. So obviously when you look at a bill, each provision is what's going to dictate you and your character on how you're going to vote. So let's just pretend 1 second, because that bill will come up and you're going to be sitting in that seat. So my question to you is, if you don't want to answer the question,
No, I'm going to answer the question for you. No, I'm not going to vote for it.
Okay.
As it exists, I'm not going to vote for it.
Out of the 3 provisions, though, that are on that.
Now we're getting into the...
Yeah. Out of the 3 provisions that are on that, which is mandatory E-Verify, stronger border security, and legal status through the Dignity Program, which of these provisions most influence your decision? Is it the E-Verify, stronger border security, or legal status through that?
I'm not voting for it. In separate bills, I do believe in supporting ICE, Immigration Custom Enforcement Service. Believe in well-funded U.S. Customs and Border Patrol. Let's take it standalone. Let's address it right there. The other issues, again, I go back to the dignity. It's like talking about the Patriot Act. Well, the Patriot Act ended up giving us FISA courts, the secret courts, and I just don't believe in the secrecy of government, especially when it comes to due process.
Yeah, I agree with you. All right, so we're going to move on to government surveillance and privacy. This seems to be like one of the big topics right now. Right? So everybody's talking about the flock, right? That's what everybody. Little does we have a lot of citizens that have never worked in government before, so they don't understand that flock it's like this big. Let's pretend like we have a ruler. It's like less than a centimeter. That's how big flock is. Because the AI technology that the government already uses, we know.
I agree with you 100%.
So let me ask the question. So I'm big on the Fourth Amendment.
Due process.
Yeah. The Fourth Amendment protects Americans from unreasonable searches and seizures. Congress voted on legislation expanding federal AI-powered surveillance capable of tracking the movements of law-abiding Americans. Would you vote yes or no?
I think you asked 2 questions. Let's talk about flock, because it has been in the
I'm
media.
talking about all AI-powered surveillance.
I think that the federal government, that's a different question than flock, because I want you to come back to flock, because I think
it's AI surveillance.
Well, okay. Well, okay. Well, I told you, let's keep these answers to about 90 seconds apiece. Do you want to talk about AI surveillance? It's taking place. There's satellites all over space that track every movement, thermal, infrared, whatever. They can read a license plate from space. That happens. I mean, the NSA, the FBI, the CIA, whatever. That's a different issue. If you want to talk about where AI is going, I will say this about AI. I think it's one of the few things where the federal government needs to play a role. And what do you say? Take a supremacy, usurp the field, or just buy it out. I think we don't need. AI is a part of our society. It's not really my generation growing up. We didn't have cell phones, but it is here. It's here. We can sit here and talk about your 4th hour about AI, but it's part of our future. The federal government has to have a role in the regulation of AI. We can't have all 50 states pass their own laws. We're already seeing where Colorado, for instance, has passed something that probably is contrary to what the people in Florida would go. It's a little bit more liberated, and I don't even know the minutia, but I think that there needs to be one, because we know who our greatest competitor in the AI field in the global sense is going to be, and that's going to be China. So we don't need California, Colorado, Alabama, and Florida passing 50 different AI laws that govern it. So we do need for Congress, both the House and the Senate, and the president weighing in with his executive authority to have a big role in the shaping of where we're going with AI.
Well, let me ask the question. I'm going to rephrase it.
Okay.
Okay. If elected to Congress, would you vote on legislation that would expand federal AI-powered surveillance capabilities? No. Thank you.
No. Which ties back into the FISA courts and all the other stuff. I mean, They all go hand in hand, but no.
They don't need to expand
But that's
surveillance.
different than us talking about a flock camera system.
Explain.
Okay,
How is it
now we're
different?
talking.
How is it different?
Ask your flock question, but you just did to explain. Flock, as we understand it, Sheriff Tommy Ford, my good friend, and all the others. Let me say this: with the flock camera system, I believe that is a tool that local government utilizes as needed to solve crimes. They've solved multiple murders here. They've solved killings in my neighboring Gulf County. I don't think that's AI satellites from outer space watching you. If somebody steals my outboard motor or to kidnap my child, you know what? Tonight, today, overnight, there's a good chance by lunchtime tomorrow it's going to be solved, because the 50 people that drive under that red light from 11 o'clock until daybreak the next morning, we're going to know exactly who they are. Now, that's not looking into your life. The Supreme Court has established that flock cameras are not illegal. We can debate just how far they are, but I think comparing that to AI expanded surveillance into our lives and making flock, I think, is a flawed argument. Do I believe in common sense when it comes to it? Yes. Do I want that data just out there for anybody to just go draw on and do things? No. But I trust my local sheriff, Mike Harrison in Port St. Joe. I trust Sheriff Tommy Ford right here and the other sheriffs that are part of our constitutional elected people. They're accountable to us. We have access to them. I promise you, anybody in Bay County that calls the Bay County Sheriff's Office and asks for the sheriff to call them, I promise he's going to get that message. And in all likelihood, if they articulate what their need is, he's going to call them back. I don't think we have that in a lot of our representatives in Washington, D.C. And that's the big difference about talking about a flock system that helps protect us, insulates us from rolling gangs that may come up through Mexico and steal outboard engines out of a local marina, or go on to my shop at the bus barn. And I'm telling real life examples and steal equipment. We're able to track those people because we knew a crime took place sometime overnight. And I'm glad that common sense can come into play. That's what I'm all about. That's what I want to do as a congressman. I want to weigh in. I want to be able to call those. In the case of flock systems, I want to call the people back home, the local sheriffs, and say, hey, tell me how this works and not. I promise you, since I commented on it last time, I've heard from them. And there is a common sense way. But I do go back to my outboard motor being stolen, or my kid or your kid being kidnapped. We've got a chance at solving it.
Yeah, it's yeah, it's definitely a topic of discussion.
Next topic.
Yeah, I will say this before we go on, because when I ask you, if you'd vote for legislation expanding federal AI-powered surveillance,
I said no.
Yeah, you did say no. Flock does use AI for surveillance. Now, I think we both have established the fact, or you have at least, that you like the safety protocol that comes along with Flock because of the examples that you used. So
you're digging
but if you
into
were going to be,
you're digging into the exception. I'm not going to tell you that I'm not in agreement with you.
Yeah.
There are times and chances things that could be abused.
Yeah.
And just like we discussed,
well,
Rico.
technology is a tool. So you're the biggest weapon that anybody's ever going to have is their brain, right? So, and we just have tools that are able to manifest those things that we want to use, using them for whatever capabilities we may use them. So, my, I guess, if you were to be voting for something like this when it comes to legislation, do you have any ideas of any legislation that you would be wanting to introduce or back that protects Americans' privacy over some of this technology? Because me and you both know, listen, 1776, we were breaking away from a tyrannical government, and it's very, very easy for a government to become tyrannical overnight. It happens every single day overseas.
We're going to be we're going to be analogous here in a minute.
Yeah. So you're going and I just want to get this on the record, you're going to fight for Americans' privacy when it comes up in Congress.
Yes.
Okay, we'll move on.
Yeah, okay.
We'll get off the topic.
And you brought up 1776, and I love that. And here's where I'm at. Most Americans that grew up, and thank God we really are teaching civics back in school again, and I commend Governor DeSantis for making that a priority for us. But you and I know that the first 10 amendments to the U.S. Constitution are called our Bill of Rights. Let's discuss for a minute the first 5. We may have to be reminded.
I got a lot of questions.
I got you, but I want you to hear the first 5.
All right.
We know that the First Amendment, freedom of speech, right to assemble. We know the Second Amendment was there to protect the first, right to bear arms. We're going to skip the third. You and I have already glanced upon the Fourth Amendment, due process, and due process expanded. To me, due process is as important as the first, the second, and everything else. And we could sit here and talk about the Fourth Amendment, due process, everything else. We glanced over the Third Amendment, and we know Fifth Amendment tells us, you don't have to testify against yourself. You have the right to remain silent. But let's discuss 1776 and the Third Amendment. Now, most people don't know the Third Amendment. I may have stumped you. The Third Amendment to the Founding Fathers in 1776 was about quartering of soldiers in your home without basically a due process. Fourth Amendment looking after it. But in 1776, the British government could come along and say, we're taking your home. Everything that you own, we're taking it for us. We're going to quarter soldiers. We're going to do. That doesn't seem to be an issue today. We just overlook it. We don't think about it. But I go back to the Save America Act. The importance of the Save America Act is as important to us today, 250 years later, as the Third Amendment was at the time. Not saying eliminate it, but I'm simply saying if we don't put common sense back in, yes, when it comes to our rights, that's what, going back to, spying on people. I'm going to fight anything that the government expands. The Patriot Act after 9/11/2001 was a catchy cliche name. Who could vote against the Patriot Act? But it violated probably more than any other thing since FDR was president and took away rights, and right or wrong, debatable. And at the beginning of World War II, the Patriot Act probably did more to restrict our individual rights than anything, and expand government's role in spying on us and eliminating the Fourth Amendment on everyday people's lives. When you talk about secret courts, I will not vote for the renewal of FISA courts. I believe that people should be, you may sometimes have to have private sessions with lawyers from both sides, but to have a FISA court that operates truly in a basement out of line, it starts right there. And that has nothing to do with AI, but it has everything for doing with the expansion of things that violate our rights. I believe in common sense government, and that people should have their basic rights, not as guaranteed, ordained freedoms, not privileges, but as rights.
Tracking. Awesome. Thank you. We'll move on to education. This is your wheelhouse, so you should have some good ones for me here. How long you been a superintendent?
15 years. I have actually become the senior superintendent in Florida.
Yeah. My mom.
Years in service.
I think my mom just passed 32 years in the classroom.
Life is fleeting. It goes by in a hurry, doesn't it?
Yeah. So my mom's been a teacher for a very long time. She's always worked at private schools and then charter schools.
Yeah.
Never really been part of the public school system. But I do have some questions here. So, given your experience as leading a school district, do you support eliminating the U.S. Department of Education?
Yes! Exclamation point. Next question.
Okay. I do have some questions on that. So you're familiar with Title I and the IDEA, which is the Individual Disabilities Education Act. So the reason why I'm asking
Yes.
about these is because of the amount of money that's behind them in that department.
Well,
so
yeah, and you know, we could, those are federal things, and they could come
Yeah.
to the states in the form of block grant. Those who children have special needs, you know.
well, let me get to the
yeah,
question
okay.
on that. So
Well, let me say this: those who depend on IDEA, you know, it's a hard thing to sit here and say negatives for, but we can expand on that answer.
well, I only want this because this was insane to
Yeah.
me. This was actually one of the questions I came up with. You know,
Okay.
just because I wanted to know a little bit more about it. So I tried to get it. So I learned a lot about Title I when I was reading about it, and then I learned about the IDEA. When I first heard about it, I was kind of like, okay. But then I found out $18.4 billion is related to Title I every year. That's annually. And then between 15 to $16 billion goes into that Individual Disability Education Act. So that's 34 billion in total. So if we got rid of the Department of Education and you're part of the U.S. Congress, where do you think that money should go? Do you think it should go to the state? Do you think it should go back into a federal program? Or where does it go?
Well, let me say this: as a school superintendent, you're talking about the Title I IDEA plans. I don't see it. I've really never dealt with anybody. 15 years, you don't deal with people from our level. Mark McQueen, me, any of the superintendents here, we don't deal with the U.S. Department of Education. No,
You're about to.
well,
If you get voted in.
I get that, but and I do get that, and I understand
yeah,
that,
yeah.
and I think that I carry in my bailiwick, my bag of tricks, a greater understanding than most will have. The Florida Department of Education deals kind of on our behalf. I've said I'm all for eliminating, the middleman. And I do think that is the U.S. Department of Education. And whether you call it a block grant or just direct funding to the Florida Department of Education, those same funds, and I know you said 18 million, 16 million, it totals out 30-something billion. Here's what Florida, and you have to understand how it works. IEP, now, that's where the rubber meets the asphalt, so to say. That's where it comes into contact, our world on the local level. Probably a third of everything we do, whether you're Bay District schools or Gulf District schools, probably a third of our overall total budget. For me in Gulf County, it's probably just short of $35 million. It's into the hundreds of millions probably over here in Bay County. It's a much bigger of a district. Yeah. But the IEP, most people that aren't in education don't know what IEP means, but it means an individualized education plan. So you have weighted students and unweighted students. Well, an unweighted student, every little red-blooded student that walks into enrolls and goes to your school district, they're worth about $10,000 each. Probably it's more than that, actually, but just as a rule of thumb, look at them and say, okay, there's 100 kids. The state, if they're there for the fall head count, the spring head count, then the state gives you twice a year money totaling about $10,000. If every 100, it's about $1 million. But if they're weighted, meaning they have different plans, Florida has IEPs. We don't have for instance, and I'm using a case site example, we don't have like a dyslexic program for kids that are dyslexic, and it's a real thing, or certain other handicaps that you can have along the way, which vary to the individual. Now, you go into Alabama, they'll have a dyslexic program. They'll route a kid there. Florida has an IEP program, an individually education plan for every student that comes here. They go through what's called an MTSS process, and it elevates through, and it's documented through the teachers and the specialists that are in the school, and whatever accommodations are set in place for that child, usually identified in kindergarten or certainly early on in the years, follows them all the way through, whatever those accommodations will be. Sometimes it's that they can't read, they're dyslexic and have to have the test read to them. Sometimes those weighted FTEs, to 254 or 255. Those are designated and could be a wheelchair-bound student that's entitled under our legal system to be educated in the public education, secondary and elementary public education system through their 22nd year. Well, that costs a lot of money. Instead of $10,000 a piece like the unweighted, they're getting $65,000 or $70,000 because sometimes the government says they qualify for a one-on-one teacher, not a 1-to-18 or 1-to-20 ratio, like the ones that don't have a handicap. They qualify for more. Some of the ratios are 1-to-3 when we get into the ESE, the exceptional services. We really could sit here and talk about things all day, but
Yeah.
to a family that has an exceptional service need, we really are a lot. And I won't say everything. And what we're doing for those kids is so often we're preparing them for the rest of their lives for a group of those kids that they're prepared to learn life skills just to be able to get along at home, how to maybe fix themselves something in the microwave, to making their bed up and contribute to the family at home. And, you and I sit here today and we can talk about our aches and pains and our complaints, but we're blessed. And I do believe that when it comes to the ESE, the exceptional services needs of kids, there is a role. I don't think it has much to do with the Federal Department of Education. Eliminate them. But that money is often well spent when it reaches the individual needs of those individual education plan students.
So getting back to the question so
I thought that was the answer to the question.
Hey, do you believe it should go back to the state? Or
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
That's
Yeah,
that was
go
the
back. Yes.
Man, dude, my attention span's horrible. So you were talking about all that. I was like, I hope the viewers can get all that.
Well, I mean, this is 3 shows on its own, and it's budgeting.
Yeah.
And I think what so many state legislators realize when they get to Tallahassee is they think that they're going to go up and do certain things, and they get there, and 1/3 of everything they do in funding. You ask Senator Trumbull, ask Representative Griffiths, any of them, and they're going to say, "Oh my God, education's such a large part of the state budget." So
I did have some one-offs on that. It was like, do you support expanding school vouchers for education savings account? I think you pretty much answered that one. And like, you ensure how are you going to ensure that public schools aren't financially harmed by the Department of Education being shut down?
They're not going to be harmed by the Federal Department of Education shutdown.
Okay.
I do believe in school choice. And I believe in a responsible voucher system. I also believe that when we start preparing our budgets and put them forth in July, preliminary, and a second preliminary in August, and vote on the final budget, that shouldn't be a moving target. But that's more of a Tallahassee issue we can take up with our state representatives.
I just have one more question pertaining to education, and then we're going to move on. Well, actually, I kind of got 2. I got 2 more.
I like it.
And then we'll get off of education. The first one's about DEI. All right, I can tell by your face right now you are going to love this one. Would you vote to prohibit federal education funding from going to schools requiring DEI training or programs? Okay?
Yes.
Why?
I don't believe.
Do I really have to say why? No, you don't.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
I agree with you.
I mean, sometimes yes and no are complete answers. There's spare the audience a long answer.
Yeah. Okay, cool. That's
yeah.
it.
We're against wokeness.
Okay, good. No, I'm 100% on it. I've got a daughter and I have a son. Both of them are very active. They're both into sports. So this next question is going to rely to that. I think you know where it's coming from. This is important to me with my daughter if I ever do decide to send her to a public school. All right. So if Congress votes on legislation prohibiting biological males from competing in girls' and women's sports at schools receiving federal funding, would you vote yes or no?
You're talking about boys competing in women's sports.
Yeah.
I do think that's part of the Save America Act. It's one of the little riders along in it. So I think that if Congress votes to pass Save America, we get that all in one failed swoop. So no, boys shouldn't compete in. They're two genders, and I don't mean science doesn't sometimes. Accidents happen, but there's either boys or girls, and I just it's illogical to even argue on that. Boys should stay out of girls' sports.
So just to clarify on this, should eligibility be determined by biological sex at birth or gender identity? Ah, man, I don't even like saying that. It sounds horrible.
I don't support the gender
Anyway.
identity. Boys should stay
Okay.
in boys' sports, and that determination should be made at birth.
And who should set the rules? You think that states should, Congress, or
Congress,
athletic
Congress.
governing? You
Yeah.
think that Congress should make the rules for the school districts?
I mean, I think Congress needs to establish boys are boys and girls are girls, yes.
And I think some of those issues come from the National Federation of Athletic or High Schools Associations. National Federation for State High School Associations, the NCAA, and the Florida High School Athletic Association. I think when we start letting, and I'm sorry, I took over. It's all about you. You're here,
No.
but I'm going to give a little bit of my opinion on that. When we start allowing associations to govern what's acceptable in athletics with our kids, it's like it's a give and take with the government. It's like I want them to make decisions and it just needs to be cut and dry. That way these associations can't, but then at the same time, I'm still for small government. How's that work?
Let me say this. When you say the word national associations, with the exception of the NRA and very few others, but when you say the national associations, they tend to be more liberal. And I can't, and they represent typically, I guess, all 50 states. And we know that 20 some odd states are pretty much libtarded out. But when we talk about our state organizations and the Florida High School Activity Association, FHSAA, they tend to be a lot more conservative in where we're at, very much so, and don't always follow the national recommendations. So, you know, as far as I go, I'm gun shy of anytime you say a national organization. I mean, I'm more inclined to go with what people right here at home are going to believe in, and stand by that.
All right, we're
common sense.
We're going to go ahead and get into some extra ones. We don't have very many left, so
we're good. No rush.
All right. We're going to talk about AIPAC and foreign influence.
Yeah.
Okay. Those of you who don't know, the American Israel Public Affairs Committee, AIPAC. Will you accept campaign contributions or outside support from AIPAC or any foreign policy advocacy organizations?
I would be very leery. I don't believe in selling out any American rights. First of all, nobody's offered. So there's the real answer. But
not yet.
Well, let me say it a different way. I think every politician in Washington, D.C. probably takes money from certain organizations. I know that when I lay down in a biblical sense, and I have a 12 and a 13-year-old boys, and when we say our prayers every night, hadn't missed many times in my life, but when we say our prayers, just like the Bible instructs us to do, leave it up to everybody else. But we say, we pray for peace in Jerusalem, or peace of Jerusalem, as Franklin Graham would say. Whether Jerusalem is a plotted out place on earth or Jesus' holy city in heaven, Jesus was a Jew. So to say, will you take donations from those of the Jewish faith? Absolutely, I would. Would I sell out to an organization that represents something that's counter to America? Absolutely not. I'm from here. I'm running for Congress because I want to represent the 2nd Congressional District. It's mostly a rural district. Panama City being the urban setting and Tallahassee being the other urban setting. Panama City tends to skew more Republican. Tallahassee tends with the colleges, 3 colleges located there, at least 3. But FSU and Florida A&M and the state capitol tends to skew more in the more Democratic or liberal mindset. But the other 14 counties in between are mostly rural, very conservative people. and they're God-fearing. They believe in the Bible. And as I just said, they would pray for peace of Jerusalem. Now, when you say taking AIPAC money, I don't think that somebody from AIPAC walks up to you and says, here's money. But I think there are people of the Jewish faith that say, I believe in your conservative values and you believe in America first.
Well, it's just like
Anything.
It's just like anybody that's trying to influence a vote, though. I mean, you have lobbyists. They came up. They did
Well, the
do it.
lobbyists haven't given me money, but I've received north of $400,000 from nearly 500 donors in this district. And that's people from almost, I think, every county have contributed to my campaign. 90+% have come from within the district. Again, that goes back to of the people, by the people, for the people. I feel real good about where we are.
Yeah. Well, actually, that kind of, it's always been my thing because I know, if your constituents overwhelmingly wanted a specific vote, but your largest donor wanted something that was the opposite, who wins?
My largest donor is a constituent. So split that hair.
Oh, I just said
My largest donor is $3,500.
Yeah.
I promise I'm not selling out the people or the country for $3,500.
That's a better answer.
Yeah. A good cigar, a good cigar,
better. That's a better
good
one.
cigar and a good steak, maybe.
Yeah.
I'm kidding.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
I've not been put in that realm.
Yeah.
And I'll be honest with you. Others in this race, and I know you're supposed to keep it on us a lot of times, but others in this race have nothing but outside money, and I think it should be concerning.
Yeah, no. That's always like the big concern most of the time is like who's influencing the vote and how are they influencing it. If it's I'm giving you thousands of dollars, hundreds of thousands, millions, however much.
Well, you're getting into PACs versus campaign money,
Yeah.
and there are some that have funded multi-million-dollar PACs. I mean, literally, one candidate's money is from Lebanon, and it should be concerning. It's one of the candidates from here, and I don't understand why sometimes it doesn't get questioned. The other one seems to be self-funded, but mine's mostly almost all from the 2nd Congressional District.
This next question might get a little hairy. We'll see, because keep in mind there are questions that I'm asking that I have different answers myself, but I just feel like these need to be asked. So, okay. Would you support legislation expanding U.S.-Israel defense integration? It's something that has come up here recently.
I believe in American sovereignty.
Okay.
Do I support NATO? Yes. Do I believe in anything that does anything to water down or take away from us? I think the answer to your question is a no with an exclamation point.
Okay.
No, I don't believe in giving away
our
any
militaries.
control. No.
Okay. And because that was, the next, if you would have said yes, it would have been like, so where do you draw the line between being allies, becoming strategically integrated? It's kind of like, I don't believe in that.
I support
I've seen
Israel
that.
as being the only democracy in the Middle East.
Let me give you my opinion on Israel real quick, even though it's all about, we're here for you, but the way that I look at them is we're supposed to be allies with them, which means you're friends, right? I can become friends with you, but you ever have friends call you and ask for money? I mean, it happens sometimes. And when you got it, sure. When you don't got it, tell them no. This whole thing, though, and what's very, very, you want to sit there, I'm a follower of Christ, right? I'm a Christian man. I'm a God-fearing man. He says, to take care of Israel. I get it. But that just means I'm not going to attack you. That doesn't mean that I'm just going to give you money every single time you need something, or I'm going to integrate my military with you.
We're not going to do that.
That means I'm not going to bomb you tomorrow. I'm not going to do anything intentionally to hurt your nation. All right, and you're going to do the same back to me. And so that's where I stand on the Israel thing. But as far as like the Bible and, you said earlier Jesus was a Jew. Well, Jesus also, when he was talking about the Jews at the time, especially their rule of governing, he called them a bunch of pit vipers. He went into a synagogue
I want you
and
to
flipped
keep asking.
tables.
Let me say this. They're
So-
really, and I think there are two halves to the coin.
Mm-hmm.
There is the nation of Israel, and that's the Jewish people.
Mm-hmm.
And there's the country of Israel. And I think that Western democracy helped establish the country of Israel following the year immediately following World War II. And yes, we did seed the Middle East with a democracy. Everything else over there is not a democracy. Israel is that. Now, I do believe that we undertook that commitment, and no different than helping birth a child. You bring them into this world, you're going to care for them until they can care for themselves, because it's it's a contract you made with your spouse, significant other, or God. But the chemical click happens when you have children of your own. You love them.
Yeah.
It's hard to tell somebody that doesn't have kids, but it's a chemical click that goes on. I do think we have a responsibility to ensure the fact that they are protected and get to exist. Now, you're talking about merging militaries? Absolutely not. But again, I think NATO has kind of gotten away a lot from what its intended creation was, and I think the president has drawn that up when Spain and others really get to have free everything and contribute nothing. Then you've got to question how's it benefiting us. But it does benefit us because Spain is part of Western society. They have, for the most part, more our ideals than they do the Chinese or the Russians. And those are the major bad actors that are left in the world. And I think you bring back to the Israel question, and they're part of what we help bring into existence. Now, the nation of Israel is the biblical part we talk about. And I think that's what we're saying, what we pray for. I know we could hair split all the time, but Israel does contribute to monitoring, the national defense, even our own, through intelligence. Now, I'm not privy to intelligence briefings. None of us are. Maybe as a member of Congressman, we work ourselves into one of those committees where we get it more. But sometimes we do have to trust our leadership when they say Israel has good intelligence that we can rely on. Well, that's different than saying we've sold out our military to them.
We got one more question on military, and then we'll move on. And then you're hanging in like a champ.
No, I like it. We don't no big rush.
All right, let's talk about congressional war powers. I don't know how much you've looked into this now.
Well, I know what we knew growing up.
Yeah. So, do you believe that Congress should have? Do you believe that Congress should have to authorize any new military action against countries like Iran? Why or why not?
I believe in a strong executive if I like him.
Really?
And I like President Trump. I think that Joe Biden showed us that he was a weak executive. I think that there are times that the executive has to take a strong leadership role. And I do believe that congressional oversight should be part of that equation.
The reason why I don't agree with you on this particular one is Congress is who declares war. Congress is who funds war, right? That's what you're going to be doing if you
military action. Are you saying every military
I'm
action
saying
is war?
April 6th, 2017, April 13th, 2018. I'm talking about January 3rd, 2020. I'm talking about June 21st, 2025, where Donald Trump sits there and he uses, I think he abuses the powers of Article 2. Article 2 powers, where he's just like, I'm going to override it. I don't care what Congress says. I'm going to go bomb this place. To me, that's negligence as a leader, because you're not thinking about what that could cause. Now, that's my opinion.
I'm going to push back to say this. Congress does need a role, but there is no way I trust Chuck Schumer, AOC, Nancy Pelosi, Ilhan Omar, and all those other band of idiots.
How many congressmen are there that
That
vote?
control the other side, and they have been defined as the ones that control it. There's no middle ground that exists, to my knowledge, in Congress right now. I hope that there are people on both sides or the other side, such as that would be willing to work with me or whoever represents us in Congress on a farm bill. You can't help but to believe there have to be some Democrats that serve in Congress that have farming in their community and look forward to work on certain issues. But when it comes to national security, as far as you're talking about war powers, I think that you and I probably have a lot of agreement. I do believe Congress's role should be more involved, but I do not believe that Congress should be engaged in every military action the president takes. Now, what do they call it? The Gang of Eight, the ones he's supposed to apprise that represent a cross section of Congress. There's a little bit of a checks and balance before he goes and does something.
It's been both sides. It hasn't just been Donald Trump.
I agree.
We saw it, but my only thing is that when you go out there and you start bombing other countries, when you start
you're asking about the difference of a protracted war and a military action. What we did to Maduro didn't last 24 hours. I don't think he intended the Iran deal to last as long as it did.
There needs to be something there, because when it comes time to vote on, I feel like it needs to come to a vote to where you're able to have a say, and that is my representative. Because if we're going to be sending boys, they're boys, by the way. Like when I was in the military, the guys that I was surrounded by, I was an old man. At 26 in the infantry, dude, you're old, right? The guys that make up, they're 17 to about, when you turn about 26, 27, that's when you're starting to get up higher. And you're not really out there in the dirt.
You're describing boots on the ground.
But what I'm saying, yeah, because that's what happens. You got a president that gets half cocked, goes out there, and he starts freaking attacking other countries. We've been lucky so far.
Outside of special forces, I don't think we've had boots on the ground.
No, what I'm saying is that the choices that he makes to bomb could potentially do that. Like when you go out and you start bombing other countries and you start taking out. Now, I agree with the Iran nuclear strikes, right? I agree with that. I think it's great. The thing about it is, what I don't find great is, as an American citizen who pays my taxes, who has a guy like you who's supposed to be representing me, didn't have a say in it. That's bothersome to me, because if it would have turned around back the next day, it's not very hypothetical. I hate playing hypotheticals. But China goes, we're not doing that. Now we're in a world war. And because of that stupid crap.
Congress should be involved in the next world war.
And because of that stupid crap that he did without even telling anybody about it, or without even, nobody even voted on it. Now you got boys that are going to war, they're going to die, that are never going to see their mom again. They're never going to see their wife again. They're never going to see their kids grow up, because some guy was trying to flex on another country, instead of going to Congress and saying, hey, what do you think? What do your constituents want in your district?
Well, I'm going to leave it here and just simply say, I don't believe the president has to go to Congress on every military action he takes. But I think if we're going to get into a protracted war, Congress has to be involved, because there's part of a budgetary process of spending. Right now, I support the president, and I want to be clear with that. More importantly, and I use this as the ultimate pivot, I had rather go up to Washington, D.C. as your representative and see what I can do for the people right here in the 2nd Congressional District. There are farmers in Jackson County that need a well-funded USDA Farm Service Administration bill that helps guarantee when they plant their crops, the profit loss, PLC, and those other agencies, the NRCS, the Natural Resource Conservation Service. You know what? Some of the money that comes out of DOE that went wastedly so might go to help some of those farmers, and some of it may go to help us for our shortfalls in education. I think there are a lot of important issues right here at home that we need to focus on and concentrate on. Right here in Bay County, there's a lot of infrastructure needs that are needed right here. We can keep expanding that port. We can keep expanding the bridges, the highway system that make Panama City and Bay County truly an international place to be. We're going to grow that airport. Look at what it's done right now. And we're going to expand the tax base where there are jobs, good paying jobs right here for the people. And then we could go back to the start of our question. Just how much immigrant help do we need to help maintain it? We hope that there's so many jobs that we can't fill them. And people have to pay locals and home people that type of money. I just think that there's a national defense side of things that you and I opened this question with that, yes, I think we could probably find a happy island to exist on, but in the everyday kind of way, congressmen don't get to direct where the USS Ronald Reagan sits in the Persian Gulf. No congressman's doing that. That's an executive decision. But congressmen do get to influence the budget, and we haven't passed a budget, much less a balanced budget, since 1997. We now have a $39.2 trillion deficit in this country. And you and I were talking about our kids earlier. They will never know what it's like to have a windfall from the federal government. All we do is pay the interest. I want Congress and whoever represents us in Washington, D.C., want that to be me, to go up there and start working on the real issues, not the distracting issues. There's no military in the world that's going to beat us. The Chinese are not going to invade us like the beaches of Normandy, neither are the Russians. But they are going to do it through illegal birthing and things like that they water down over 100 years, our way of life and our constitutional rights that our children and grandchildren may not experience that like we and our parents before us did.
Yes, sir. So I got 3 more topics.
Yes.
All right. So that we're going to talk about federal spending because you just brought it up. This one's kind of, you get to do whatever you want with this one. I got some examples here for you, but if I handed you a red pen, okay, and I said, hey, find $100 billion in savings, how would you do it from your position in Congress?
I would go get Elon Musk, Doge report, and I would go down that list, and I think we could easily eliminate it. And let me see it. Let me say this. I'm going to start right here. And when I first sat down, I think you gave me a softball. Last night, I got to follow speaking. We were up in Jackson County at their Chamber of Commerce put on a little candidate forum. Yeah, and I got to follow the 3 or 4 Democrats that are running on that side. And the person right in front of me, the Democrat, said that we had really made a mistake defunding USAID. Well, let me say this. I think we could find the first $100 billion with the waste that USAID has funded all of these NGOs. Anybody listening, what's an NGO? A non-government organization.
Yeah.
And we could really drag that out. But I think the USAID cut itself, hopefully has already been made, but I think that one alone would get there. I've already said it, eliminate the Federal Department of Education. And I believe what President Trump said in his first term. I think you should take some of these departments, whether it's the Department of Energy or Department of Commerce or Department of Interior, put them out in the flyover states, put them in St. Louis, Missouri, move them out to where we really we water down the concentration that has become the swamp of Washington, D.C. And I think if we did reinvent things like that, I just think that there's going to be tremendous cost across the board.
I don't really like the question that was sent in either because it was name 5 specific line items that you would cut, and for each one of them give a dollar amount, program, and why. So I'm going to make it easier for you. This is just some questions. I'm going to go down this list, and then you tell me if you'd cut it or not. So, and I'm going to give you the dollar amount for each one, and you probably already have heard some of these dollar amounts.
Can I give an opening statement because I want to qualify it by just saying I believe in a zero-based budget. Whether we say we're going to pass that on an annual or every 2-year or 3-year period. I believe that everybody should start at a zero, just like I do at the Gulf County schools. We don't get to go and say, okay, we've spent $33 million this year. We're going to add 3% and be at $34 million next year. I believe every question you're going to ask, we should start at zero, meaning they have to justify their expenditures. So I think that would take care of probably all 5 of the answers if we went in on an annual or every 2-3 years and said, we're going to budget it and you're going to line item justify things. At that point, I think it's easy to take that red pen marker you and I were talking about.
Just because I want the viewers to be able to hear some of these. So our defense budget is roughly $900 billion. Would you cut it?
No is the simple word.
Okay.
Would we look at it and say we're just going to grow it? Because, again, I go back to I think that defense should be like everybody else. I think the Pentagon has so much shadow operations going on that Congress has been in the dark about that. Again, I think that everything, it doesn't mean we have to put everything out there for the public to see and the secret stuff. But I think that at the end of the day, if you apply rule number 1, let's start with a zero baseline. Yeah. And then I think that, we sunshine
let me give
makes everything healthy.
Let me give you a funny story. So, obviously, I got kids. We go to grill outs all the time. We went to somebody's house. It's been a couple of weeks ago now, and I was talking with a guy out back. He's got like a green egg, the extra large green egg. And I think those things are got like all the stuff with that. I'm a green egg guy myself. That's what I like to grill on. Those grills get expensive, right? So he's got almost a $4,000 grill.
By the time, that's right.
And then, I'm a security guy. That's what I've been paid to do in the past. And so, I walk around his house, the outside of his house, look around. Obviously, we're in and out. I'm looking at it, and the only thing he's got is a Ring doorbell, and it's run by ADT. It's about $100 probably worth of security. It's the same thing if you look at the United States. And some people are going to, that's a horrible analogy. No, it's a perfect analogy. You spent $4,000 on a grill, but you only got $100 worth of defense. You only got, I believe that the most expensive thing in your home should be security. And if you start racking it up with guns and ammunition.
How many guns?
Yeah, exactly.
If it's like my house,
yeah, I got like $100,000 worth of guns and about $5,000 security system.
The USS Gerald R. Ford, the USS George Bush, Ronald Reagan. Those are called assets.
Yeah.
But
it's an example of how and I know it's simple, and I know a lot of people might do, but I literally do look at it that way. Your defense budget and your
I don't want to be North
security,
Korea.
Your security and your defense budget should always be higher because that's your security.
I didn't argue with you on it.
Yeah.
I just simply said, and maybe you look at it through a little different lens than you do every other component of government, because you realize so much of what we do on defense can't be shared with the rest of the world. But I do believe that there has to be accountability.
Yeah. Next one is Homeland Security is roughly $100 billion, which I was kind of.
You're going back to our earlier question about.
You cut it. You're just saying, you know what? I'd probably start at zero at all of them and then work my way up. All right. Yeah. I won't go through them all. All right. We're going to move on to military shutdowns. This is a.
That's oxymoronic. I don't believe in military shutdowns.
Well, listen to what I have to say. So, when I served in the military, it happened a couple of times where, especially a junior enlisted service member, you're living from paycheck to paycheck. Mm-hmm. And during government shutdowns, military pay is very, very uncertain. And there's also been a period of time, and I know this to be a specific thing with a friend of mine, where the death gratuity benefits for families of fallen service members were delayed. So if you were elected to Congress, right, sometimes in Congress, I'll just ask it like this. If Congress can't perform its most basic constitutional duty of funding the government, why should service members and their families bear the consequences before Congress does?
If Congress shuts down, I will suspend receiving a paycheck. I will suffer. I will suffer along with you. I believe in a better quality of life, which typically is through better pay and the expansion of VA benefits. And in a simple answer, what do I even mean by that? I believe that any hospital in this country, certainly this state, certainly in the rural parts of our second congressional district, any hospital that's a 501c3 or a government benefited hospital should have a quasi-veterans clinic operating within it. And it all comes down to the insurance and TRICARE and how it's all received by the doctors. And I can tell you this, that and Social Security and
I got ones on Social Security.
and Medicare will be things that I am a staunch advocate not only to save, but to prosper them. Now, that's where my priority is going to be. I want our veterans taken care of, our active service members taken care of, and I want those that have worked their entire careers taken care of without any cost. And for those that are in the real world working just like us or just like me right now, I don't want every time I get a 2.5% pay raise, it goes to cover an 8% insurance cost increase. Now, I think the insurance companies and oftentimes the hospitals have run amok, and I think it's a very prosperous time for them. I want to look after the doctors, that they can go and practice medicine and care for you and me and their patients, that they don't have to become and be the administrators that they're forced to be. So I think everything meshes together.
These, just so we can work through these really quick and move on, these are just some one-offs that I have. And you can just say yes or no. You don't have to give me a long, but unless you want to. So just to get these on the record, would you support requiring Congress to remain in Washington and continue voting until the government is funded?
I mean, it's a good idea. It's notion. It's a leadership. I mean, would I advocate for it before I did? Yes, I would be a staunch advocate for it.
Cool. Next one is, would you voluntarily escrow your congressional salary during a shutdown until every affected federal employee and service member has been paid?
Yes.
Next one is, would you support legislation guaranteeing that military pay and death gratuities can never again be delayed because of government shutdowns?
Yes.
Awesome. So, all right. So, Social Security. I had to write out my own thing on this. I'm a younger guy, right? So the way that I look at Social Security might be a little bit different. Because I personally view, and people are free to disagree, but I look at Social Security as a Ponzi scheme. Mainly because today's workers are paying today's retirees. And I worry that the younger Americans are being asked to fund a system they may never fully benefit from. So I also understand why many older Americans and how they feel is different, because they paid into a system for decades and expect what they were promised. So, getting into that, I mean, the Retirement Trust Fund is projected to face a major funding shortfall around 2032 if Congress doesn't act. And Congress has known for years and running the job responsible for addressing it. So when Social Security reform comes before the House, what is the first specific reform you're willing to vote for?
I want to be on the record as saying I will never vote for any reduction to Social Security benefits for those hardworking Americans that have paid in. I'm one. I count on it as being part of what I receive one day, and just been on the record for that. Yes, by 2032, Congress has to address this issue. one of the first things I want to assume as a member of Congress, not 2022, but as soon as January of 2027, I want to work with those that are going to be the Social Security hawks that are like-minded to what that statement I just made, no cuts. But we want to start today working towards fixing Social Security, funding it. And I know you said often Social Security has been raided in the past, and often today fills the pool of money that pays today's beneficiaries. I can't tell you the minutia of how we get to the resolution, but if we don't fix it, every member of Congress is going to be thrown out on their heads. So again, I count on it as being part of what my future retirement. And I'm going to go ahead and probably say this to you. So I don't have to sell out and do insider stock trading and everything else like so many, it seems, do in Congress. My home is paid for. I made a strategic decision that we would pay along the way and we would have things paid for. That's a big burden that I don't have to meet every month. It put me at a station in life to know that when I do hit the retirement years, I can take my various pensions, my rental income checks, my savings, and yes, my Social Security, and I can make a decent living. I will be able to make a decent living. And I think that's called personal financial responsibility. And I encourage every American to step up today and start planning for that. I go back to Social Security in the sense that I say this. My dad was a labor negotiator. He was the manager of industrial relations for the old St. Joe Paper Company. He did it for close to 35 years that he did that job. They owned a couple of railroads. They owned 20 some odd box plants up the eastern seaboard. They owned a paper mill. They owned three telephone companies, and they all, had collective bargaining to get to where they're at. I never will forget something my dad said. He said, I watched some young men sit across the table from me that were on the union bargaining team, and at the time they were negotiating. He said, I never so much as withheld a nickel that I was authorized from the company to give pay into the collective bargain process. But sometimes we let the young people, we let certainly them as the union bargaining team decide where they wanted to put those monies, whether it was towards the retirement plan or towards insurance benefits or return instant grata in the form of hourly wages. He said, I watched some of those young boys become old men over that 30 plus years. And some of them made the statement to me, Charlie, that's my daddy's name. I remember 30 years ago when we were sitting here and you said, you may want to sock some of that away that we're offering today, 30 years ago, in the form of a pension. And he said, now that we're at the end of our careers and about to start drawing off of that, man, I wish I had it today instead of the instant grata of yesterday. And I think Social Security sort of kind of goes hand in hand. If we fix it today, we're not as hard pressed to just rush and throw another bandage on it in 2032 that so many are going to want to do. Our federal government wastes a lot of money, and I'm not for driving up the federal deficit above the 39 trillion we're already at. But if I must go to 40 trillion and say, let's properly fund this, today is the day to fix Social Security. And I'm going to be a staunch proponent for doing just that.
You have some ideas of how you're going to fix it?
Yeah, let's do that the next show.
Because I was going to say...
Yeah, I think there's a lot of ways to do it.
Raise the payroll cap.
No, I think I don't. I'm not even for that. I'm not
change benefits.
I'm gonna say this. I'm against any new taxes. I'm not for anything that burdens people, especially our constituents right here. Yeah. I'm against new taxes, and quite frankly, Social Security is a tax. It's treated like a tax. It's called the FICA tax anymore. It's not what it was called to start with. First of all, you ask what I would do. Everything going into the pot of money, let's let it fund that pool. that it would be there. Let's not raid the Social Security coffers. Let's leave that money alone for its purpose. It's being paid into Social Security. Leave it at Social Security. Let's correct and fund the pot that can pay everything else out. I often look at things as a two-sided coin. Sometimes I say common sense. Well, let's use common sense on that head side of the coin.
All right. Last question. Last question with a follow-up. Congressional stock trading. I'm happy you brought it up. So, should members of Congress be prohibited from trading individual stocks while they're in office?
That's a relative statement. Yeah, and in the knee-jerk sense, it's a hot-button topic. I'm going to say this. I'm not running for Congress to go be a stock trader. I have been a corporate trustee for the better part of a decade. I do understand what it's like to invest people's money. And not only am I a lawyer, I worked in the trust and financial investments department, and people look for opportunities. I'll tell you this. I do not want to be arrested or threatened for arrest if I know that we're going to make peace in the Middle East tomorrow, and I call you back and I say, Ron, dump all of your military industrial complex stock because we're going to have peace tomorrow. You know, I don't know what the legislation involves. I know that as a knee-jerk, it's nasty and ugly looking. I know that when Ilhan Omar says she's worth $11,000 one year and comes in worth $30 million a year or two later, and then once again corrects and is less than 100,000. I don't know what the truth is. I want no more distractions. I'm not going to Congress to trade in stocks. I've got a small account that I defer some of my payroll into, and conceivably I would do that as a member of Congress. I said earlier, I'm counting on Social Security. I'm counting on my state pension and whatever federal pension I get. If it's a good piece of legislation and not just witch hunt stuff, you know, that's going to be used like RICO against everybody for the wrong purpose, certainly I would vote for it. Anybody would. Again, we go back to common sense. But I think until we read that piece of legislation, what does it mean? I mean, obviously, as a congressman,
really, it's not even a piece of legislation. It's more like just getting your opinion. Do you think
if it's an ethical thing, I don't plan on dealing in stocks outside of my
so do you believe that,
own stock
do you
account
believe that
with the
congressmen
local
should
office.
have the right? Do you believe that they should be allowed to trade individual stocks while they're in office?
If I was in office, I think it's deeper than that. I think that if I did it, I would be very public about it. I would be very public about it. I don't know.
It's more like it's literally just like, do you
I'm
feel
not
like
going to
it's
trade.
right or like it's good or it's not
I
good?
think that it's being abused. But then I look at Lindsey Graham that died, has been a member of Congress for how many decades, and apparently he's worth $1.4 million. It doesn't sound like he did insider trading. Nancy Pelosi stinks. It sounds like a criminal racket that she ran. Nothing but insider trading. Yes. Where am I going with it? Do I think D.C. can corrupt people? Yes. I'm too old of a dog to learn new tricks. I'm going to live here in Florida and work in Washington, D.C. My kids are going to continue going to public school 35 miles from where we are right here. They're going to play sports where they come over to Panama City or go to Bluntstown. Yes, ethically, anybody that does it, fool me once. Let me say it a different way. Fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me, because I'd be a fool for it. Edward Jones is where my little stock account is, and I try to put a little bit of money there. I don't ever intend to open, personally, another stock account. Now, what I don't understand are people that spend $10 million on a race. Mr. Gross been called out here recently for $174,000 salary. What is he looking to get out of it? And there are other candidates that are spending multi-million dollars, and it'd take them 20 years to recoup that money. You and I are on the same page. At the end of the day, it stinks. And if it stinks, eliminate it. If you're asking about passing a law, that's one thing. I want to debate the merits of the law, just again, so we don't go back to the RICO thing. If we're talking about the ethics of it, well, I mean, yeah, I think it's unethical.
Okay. Yeah, that was. That,
Well, I think
that was. Well, yeah. I get it. It wasn't a trick question. I'm not trying to.
Well,
it
I
was
think
more
it's a
like,
trick.
hey, man, like,
yeah, but I think it's a trick answer when people look at it. They're going to say, "Oh, everybody, you read the comments, and everybody in this race, like, oh, I see a millionaire coming along the way now if he gets elected to Congress." I want to serve. I have a servant's heart. I've been a school superintendent for 15 years, and 15 audits times ever how many we do on top of that, starting my 16th next week audit. That's an annual audit. I can tell you this, I've never so much as had a significant finding against me. I've never taken a bribe. I've never taken a payoff, from the fuel man or the maintenance guy or the plumber or anybody else, to come and do something. And I think that when you get to congressional insider trading, I don't know if to say peace in the Middle East is going to come about tomorrow, and I just heard about it. Ron, sell all of your Raytheon stock. I mean, is that going to make me a criminal? No, I'm not going to vote for that legislation that says it. Take it. I mean, I've watched the financial networks just like anybody else does, and can come. I don't even know how you insider trade. I really don't. And but I don't welcome it any more tomorrow than I have for the past 15 years, that I've really policed well, and those close to me, not to let those people come in to my office that are there to offer that up. I think that's comes back to who we are and the way we were raised.
Yeah, couldn't agree more. That is all the questions that I have for you. So you're more welcome to take this time for any closing statements or anything that we didn't hit on that you'd say, hey, I really feel like I wanted to talk about this and we didn't really hit on it. I know you did normally, I think, taking a little bit of a turn with this show. I like I said, I'm taking this back over, and the old guy, he did it a little bit differently. So I'm kind of getting back into it, and I'm seemed like it was more about being able to humanize our politicians that we have either at the state capitol, Washington, or even local governments here. Because so many times, way more times than none, you get on, I believe social media is the devil. However, it's my career. So the thing about it is that they're going to get on social media all types of people, and they dehumanize you and bring you down to where you're not a dad, you're not a husband, you're a dirty, rotten, fucking politician. And the thing about it is that you are a person and that you do have something out there. And we spend a lot of time talking about the topic. So if you'd like to end on some lighter notes on maybe talking about who you are. I get who you are on paper. But I listen to all of the news channels and I hear the same crap. And to be honest with you, every politician's a liar in my book. I think every single one of them are. I got best friends that are politicians, and I don't believe them.
Well, you don't run for, let me say this. Yeah, and I think it's funny. We go to so many things, something almost every other night, one of these forums, and you'll often hear people stand up. And I'm not talking about just this race. I'm talking about the other, races, county commissioner, school board races all over the district, and somebody will stand up and say, I'm not a politician. And I'm sitting there and I'm thinking to myself, you are now. Yep. And, it's, I could give my own example. I am a politician. I've held elected political office since August 12th, 2011, when then Governor Rick Scott appointed me to fill a position and as an elected school superintendent. And it was 15 months. It seemed like everybody came out and ran against me, and I survived that election 52-48. And, people are like, why did you think you could be the school superintendent? And I said, well, I have a master's in education. I was student council president when I graduated in 1985. They're like, well, that probably qualifies you. But, it doesn't. But what I think is, I believe in elections. I believe that our republic form of democracy is the greatest sampling ever. The Greeks gave it to us, Plato's Republic, and, we've kept it together. As Benjamin Franklin said, if we can keep it for 250 years, we're still an infant in the world of countries, but can we do it for another 250 years? If you don't go get people like yourself and so many that will listen or watch this podcast, or me, that stand to lose something.
Yeah.
And I mean that. I have a secure, good job. My two boys asked me, why would you quit being superintendent to run for Congress? And had a Tallahassee politician ask me the other day, why? And I said, why what? Why would you run? Let me say this. You either have a servant's heart or not. To be a school superintendent, you're not a minister and you're not the sheriff, but if you don't have a pastor's heart, you can't be a superintendent. If you're not willing to play a little bit of law enforcement, judge, sheriff, without the gun, the green uniform, and the badge, just breaking up a fight if nobody's there else to witness it or help bring peace or, settle a grievance of sorts. Those are all the jobs as a superintendent. What nobody will realize is, in my 15 years since being appointed and now, truly elected into my fourth term, the job is everything but what I thought it was going to be. It's so much better than I thought it would be. And I'm talking about being a school superintendent, but it is so different. There is the humanity side. I lost my home. We lost schools in Hurricane Michael. And I never thought we would get reopened. Coincidence was we were on fall break. We didn't miss but much more than a week of school. Governor Scott at the time said, get them open. We did, and it was the right call. And I lost my home. Never went back to that home ever again. Never spent another night in it. We had to rebuild our lives. Took 23 days for my wife and kids and my dad that lived with us at the time. He was still alive. And the dog and the cat. Took 23 days for them to find a way to find a 1,100 square foot rental house for us to move into 2 months and move down the line. But going to the school, I don't call myself a funeral director. But do you know how many, I sometimes jokingly say a funeral producer, do you know how many funerals have been put on at our schools? Moreover, probably Port St. Joe High School, because we lost 3 of the high steeple, what I refer to as the high steeple churches in Hurricane Michael. And the Baptist Church just this week moved out into their own new building. This week, after years since Hurricane Michael, we let them meet in the Port St. Joe Elementary Auditorium. We helped do God's work. To God be the glory. But we gave them a place to keep their church together. And that's what community's all about. But going back to the funerals, do you know how many funerals we have put on in our gymnasiums at Gulf District schools? About 3 plus a year. We're close to 50 in my time as a school superintendent. Close to 50. That's not in the job description book. And yes, some of them are students. You deal with suicide. You deal with students that die in car crashes. A year and a half ago, we dealt with a student that collapsed and died during the middle of a football game. He was a star athlete. And you deal with things unexpectedly. Somebody says being a school superintendent and being a congressman is a big difference in those two. Well, it probably is, but I promise you being a congressman is not tougher than being a school superintendent. There's your shout out, Bill Husfeldt and Mark McQueen, and any other superintendents that are listening. You've got to, the job owns you and you have to own it. So it does prepare you, and it prepares you with the humanity, the human side of things. And do I think it's the right time to have offered up? Well, I do believe providence is the way God plays his hand in our lives. And I believe that God intended for me to lay out here and run for this office. Whatever he ultimately intends for me to do, that's between him and him. That is for him to decide for me. And but I love my family. I intend to work until I physically can't work. That's just what I enjoy about life. If elected to Congress, I'm going to be not only accountable, not only accessible, but my real theme is I'm going to be responsive. When you call me or you text me, you can expect me to answer or be here or to call back momentarily. But I like that. That's part of the psyche of who I am, part of the physical trait of who I am. I love the 2nd Congressional District. I love Panama City and Bay County. And I love the fact that, I live right here at your doorstep.
Well, I appreciate you coming on and talking to me. You're my first interview, getting back into it, and getting my feet wet.
Hopefully it goes south after this for the others.
Again,
No, I hope you have good interviews, and I hope you press because I love your questions, and I think that, as I said to you, I made sure I went on the record with everything, and like going back to flock cameras, you know what? I trust Sheriff Tommy Ford. I've known him his whole life, and I know he's a good man. I trust my sheriff in Gulf County. I trust the sheriffs, because they're accountable to the people that put them in those constitutional positions. And that is our great republic form of democratic representation.
Sure. Well, thank you. Appreciate it.
Godspeed. Thank you.